All right, today I'm joined by Sachin Kansal. He's the VP of Product Management at Uber, and Andrew Hasbon. I'm hoping I didn't butcher your last name on that one. He's head of safety communications at Uber as well. How are you guys?
Doing very well, Sergio.
I
Doing
think we
great, thanks.
met at Curbivore this year when you were the one of the panel speakers. But I think it was brief. We're here today for you guys to announce some wonderful news for the driver's safety, which is probably one of the top concerns in the driver community.
Yeah, no, excited to be here, Sergio. We are always talking to drivers and understanding what their needs are. And as you know, and a lot of your viewers know, having a platform where they can earn reliably and flexibly and safely always emerge at the very top of the stack rank when they talk about their needs. Now, over the years, we have launched several safety products. We, in fact, have a button on the map which we call the safety toolkit, where they can access many safety features such as access to an emergency button so they can call 911 and 911 can know their location, being able to always be sharing their location with a loved one, and so on. So today, we are making some announcements which are specifically focused on driver safety. Many features that we have launched in the past sometimes have focused on rider safety as well as driver safety. And would you like me to just go through and describe some of them?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I may have a follow-up question for you
Yeah.
on a couple of them because I did go through the list that Andrew sent me. As a driver, as an active driver, obviously, I've been a driver with you guys for over 6 years now, with thousands of trips. So obviously, I have learned how to read the room, right? So I know when something is about to go sideways. So, you de-escalate, you do what you can do, but then in certain cases, you can't help it, right? So, and the tools I think you're about to introduce, I think will be greatly welcome. So you go ahead.
Yeah. Well, great. So let me first talk about recording, both audio and video. We know this has been a request from drivers as well as riders, by the way, for two reasons. A, when there is recording happening, it is an additional motivation for everyone to be on their best behavior, which is what we want when someone is in a ride. And then second, it is a source of truth when in case something goes wrong, then either party is able to share that with us. So two announcements on that front. One, for several years now in several parts of the world, we have launched audio recording. And the way audio recording works is whether on the driver phone or on the rider phone, it's available to both parties. They can actually opt to record audio. And that audio can you can start recording it right when the driver gets to the pickup point, all the way to about 20 seconds after the trip is over. Because sometimes, even for a few seconds after the trip is over, something could potentially go wrong. So we wanted to capture those moments. And the way these recordings happen is they're fully encrypted and saved on their individual phones, such that even they could not be retrieved even by the user. But in case there was a safety incident that they want to report to us, then they could attach that audio file with that ticket and they would send it to us. And then we would be able to decrypt that audio. We would be able to listen to it and we would be able to make a determination. Now, we are launching that audio feature to 6 new cities in the US tomorrow. And then also, we are bringing video recording through the driver's phone, which has been a long-standing request from drivers. Many drivers, as you know, they use dash cams, they buy aftermarket dash cams, they put it in their cars. It works for many of them, but we have also heard that, look, these dash cams are expensive. Not everyone wants to put them in their car. And I think that solution works for some, but we also wanted to provide something that would be free and that would be available to everyone. And we have been working on that for a few quarters. And we are at a point where we want to start testing it. So we are launching it as a pilot. And again, the way it would work is in the driver's phone, they can turn it on. It's using their front-facing camera. Right. And as I mentioned about audio, it will get recorded. It will be encrypted and kept on the driver's phone and only shared with Uber in case that they want to share with us, there's a safety incident and we'll be able to view this. So it's a feature Sergio, I drive myself about not as frequently as you do, of course, but every 2 weeks I try to go out and I've tested this feature. I'm very excited about it. It worked really when I tested it. So we're going to have several drivers in a few cities in the US who are going to be on that pilot program starting tomorrow.
Great. So actually, Andrew sent me the link, so I'm going to join you guys tomorrow for the New York City announcement of that. And I'm really looking forward to it because, at the RideShare Guy, we always recommend, regardless of what time of the day you're driving, right? You're dealing with other humans and, things do go wrong. Look, you guys did 1.87 billion trips last quarter. I follow your numbers. So, I mean, things can and will go wrong if you're especially a full-time driver. So, and that includes accidents and passenger behavior and driver behavior as well. So what better way than, have some evidence to protect yourself against certain passengers that may have some different ideas. But yeah, I think turning the existing phone into a non-complicated device, I think is a great idea. And the concern that most drivers may have would be, some privacy issues. Like, let's say I'm about to push that button. I know things are going wrong for me in the car for this trip, right? Is it trip by trip on an individual basis? Or is it like, can I also record my whole shift? Let's say if I was going to drive for 8 hours, can I just record the whole shift? And then at the end, it either gets deleted because I'm not sure everybody's phone has enough of a, hard drive space to accommodate that.
That's an excellent question, Sergio. So we specifically asked that, and we got clear feedback exactly along the lines of what we were saying that, hey, I do not want to be seen as starting a recording in the moment on every trip or in the middle of a trip. So the way the feature is going to work, and of course, we're going to process the feedback from drivers and we'll tweak things as needed. But the way the feature would work now is you would opt in initially. Okay. And once you've opted in, we are actually going to automatically start recording the trip at the point of pickup all the way to 20 seconds after the drop-off, as I mentioned earlier. So that's, you don't have to do anything and it is just going to start recording. Okay. Now, at some point, if you want to not record anymore, you can opt out of the feature and then we won't record, but you don't actually have to take an action in the moment of. Now, the other thing that you mentioned in terms of privacy, we are going to be encrypting the file on the phone. So no one has access to it. In fact, even you don't have access to it. The rider doesn't have any access to it. And the only way for us to use that video is if you want to attach it with a ticket in case that there is a safety incident you're trying to report.
Do we still have to put like, I mean, I do have a dash cams and I have to display that they're being recorded, the passengers are, right? So you have to have certain stickers. I mean, every state law is different, obviously. But in California, I'm in Los Angeles, I have to display stickers outside the car that they're about to enter a car that they're going to be recorded. So do you supply that to the drivers? Because it seems like, they're going to be recorded if they do opt in the whole shift as long as they're driving. So how does that process work? Is it different city by city, state by state? How are you going to tackle that?
Absolutely. It is different city by city, state by state, generally state by state. We have single consent markets and all party consent markets. The test that we are launching tomorrow is in the single party consent markets. Okay. Where we can launch without necessarily having those stickers, even though we would recommend that that they should let their riders know. But what we are also doing in addition, in order to let the rider know, is because we know that a particular driver is recording the video, as soon as the match happens and the rider sees that Sergio is on his way to pick me up, they will also see a notification that this ride may be recorded. Okay, because we know who has video recording turned.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, great. So let's get to the next one. I mean, I think, look, I read all these things. I think they are overdue, to be honest with you. Specifically that we're going to talk about that when you get to it. I don't know if it's your second point or not, but, the passenger ID issue, right? Which, I mean, look, we did 2 town halls with 12 different wonderful drivers, Uber drivers, about 2 months ago on our channel. Unequivocally, most number one complaint was safety, right? And things you're doing today, and well, you're going to announce obviously tomorrow. We're recording this the day before. I think they're wonderful. I really do. And to me, that one particular point of onboarding the passengers to the Uber platform and going through some scrutiny, I think is a great idea. And that was the number one complaint.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. Let's talk about that next.
Okay.
Going back in time, in order for a rider to be on our platform, they have to provide us an email address that is verified. They have to provide us a phone number that's verified. They have to provide us a credit card, which is also verified. So there is some level of identity that we know. But as you mentioned, we have heard from drivers. One of the problems that we have heard from drivers is, hey, people have names, and sometimes those names are inappropriate, and drivers feel unsafe when they encounter those names. So, we've been thinking about, hey, how do we want to handle that? So there are two things we are doing. One, we are actually going to purge inappropriate names from our database, and riders will be required to update those names before they will be able to take a ride. So that's going to happen. And then the second thing is, on an ongoing basis, we want to make sure that there is more crowdsourcing of that feedback. So we're going to provide a help note to drivers there where they will be able to flag to us that, look, this rider has an inappropriate name. And whenever that happens, we will be on a continuous basis, on a go-forward basis, we'll be able to fix that as well. So we are very excited about that launch as well. We think that we should be able to provide an appropriate name for the driver when they're going to pick someone up. And we launch that tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I mean, Sachin, I have no problem picking somebody up at 3 a.m. at a bar with the name Killer. It has happened to me, okay? Trust me. And I go like, okay, if this is your government given name or family given name, I have no problem as long as it's verified, right? Hey, some people name their kids different names. But to me, it was like, the names that I see is outrageous. I mean, sometimes I laugh because it's a cartoon character. Sometimes I feel unsafe. I really do. Because I don't want to pick up a person called Gangster, and I know it's not their name, and they maybe just be playful. I mean, I'm not blaming the passenger, but a little bit of a scrutiny. We don't want every passenger to go through a background check. Obviously, that's impossible. But the unfairness that I hear from all drivers is that the passenger knows everything about me, but I don't know nothing about this passenger, especially if they have a, made up name. So I think this is another great feature. I really do. I think the drivers are going to enjoy this.
And in addition to that, a few months ago, you may have seen, we also made another announcement that if the payment instrument that you're using is an anonymous payment instrument or a gift card or Venmo or one of those accounts, then we actually ask you to provide us your driver's license or your passport or some sort of a state or national ID before you'll be able to take a trip, because we want to make sure that if we don't have a credit or a debit card like validation from you, we want to make sure that we get extra validation. So again, that message has been received very positively by drivers as well, where we are actually asking them to provide us an ID document in certain cases.
Yeah, Dara Khosrowshahi was interviewed by Harry a couple of months ago, and he did mention exactly that, I think that's another great feature. Yeah. So what's on the list next? Because this is a long list. I mean, you guys went all out on this one. So what's up next?
It's been a big focus for us, Sergio, over many, many years, but we are pleased to sort of launch this package of features tomorrow. The next, let's talk about road safety. You're doing thousands of miles. A lot of drivers are doing thousands of miles. They're on the road for a number of hours, thousands of miles as a result of that. So we have constantly been thinking, how do we provide road safety? Now there we look at both our data, but we also look at national trends. And one of the national trends that we heard from NHTSA, which is the National Highway Transport Safety Association, is, look, left turns, and especially unprotected left turns, do lead to a large percentage of crashes. So we've been thinking about, okay, how do we implement that as a feature? So what we have done is we've worked with our data scientists and our engineers, and we have worked on an algorithm because we manage our own routing algorithm.
Yep.
So, so where you are to the pickup point as well as pickup point to the drop-off point, we are navigating you through the Uber app, and we are calculating multiple routes between those 2 points. Now, sometimes you can have 2 points where, the distance may be the same, the time may be the same, but one of them may have more left turns than the other one. Okay. And now what we're doing is we are implementing a reduction of left turns on any route, as long as it's not adding too much time or too much distance to your route. So, and we have been testing that for several months, and we have seen that actually reduces left turns. We see that it reduces crashes as well. So we are now launching it all across the US.
That's awesome. It's like, without mentioning names, we know there are a couple of major delivery companies who deliver packages that have been doing only right turns. I mean, you know who I'm talking about, right? So obviously, if they're doing it, there's a reason for it. The only issue that because I'm trying to preempt this, because we get so much feedback from drivers. I'm not as much as you, obviously, but we do get a ton of feedback on the RideShare Guy. So one of the questions I have as a driver, active driver, is that depending on the city you're in, right? I mean, we all have now the wonderful, I mean, seriously, that was like a gift, which was the upfront destination, right? Upfront fares. We got a couple of weeks ago in LA. I'm like, wow, if you guys say negative things about this, then you just might as well go do something else. So long story short, in LA, I'm sure you're familiar with LA traffic. If I make that right turn and there is a blockage or an accident or something is happening, right? That trip is going to get delayed by solid 15, 20, 30 minutes. So another complaint that we've been getting with the upfront fares and upfront destination is that, yes, Uber is sending the upfront fares, but then due to some unforeseen reason, if the trip goes another half hour, since the upfront fare does not rely on minutes or destination, duration and distance, how is that going to get calculated? And it's just that I don't mind making all the right turns. The other question I had in my head, but I was thinking, getting ready for the interview, was that, a lot of people are backseat drivers, Sachin. You know that, right? If you drive enough, you're going to get into, so why'd you make that right turn? Why'd you make that left turn? Like, buddy, this is the way the app is showing, right? So those two questions came up. If you can elaborate just a couple of minutes on them, I appreciate it.
Those are excellent questions, and very much along the lines of what we hear from drivers. So thank God we talk to drivers as we build these products and people like yourself. So hopefully, I think we have done a good job of implementing these things in our products. Let's first talk about the routing. You mentioned if I take a right turn and then there's a blockage, or the backseat driving by the rider. One of the core principles for us, as we were changing our routing algorithm to minimizing left turns, is right. We're not going to add too much time and we're not going to add too much distance.
Okay.
Now, when our routing algorithm is in motion, we are taking into account not just the roads, and not just the distance, but also the traffic. So because we measure the time as well, and obviously the traffic will have to be taken into account if we measure time. So if we are going to ask you to take a right turn and there's traffic there, we would know, which would mean that it's going to take more time. And in that case, we would not send you down that route. Okay. So it's very important to us. And the second thing is, when we ran the test and we tried it with the algorithm and without the algorithm, the other thing that we were thinking, that we were watching for, is drivers' feedback through rerouting. Because the way a driver would express their feedback that, hey, this route doesn't work for me, even though Uber, you're recommending me, is, look, a lot of drivers know the cities really well. They'll just take another route. They will not follow the route that is provided by us. So we always measure that to see what is the reroute rate on our platform. And we saw that the reroute rate did not increase. Okay. So that's why we have been very carefully working on this for many quarters. And we feel like now we are at a good point to launch this. That said, if we'll get feedback, we'll continue to work on this. We think of these things as highly iterative. Now, to your second point about upfront fares, again, great point. So the way it will work is you will receive an upfront fare, but if for whatever reason, the amount of distance you end up going, let's say the rider gets in the car and says, actually, I want to go 2 miles further. I'm sure that happens some of the time. Or as you said, you're stuck in traffic and it takes you half an hour extra. We do calculate that. And we will have what we call a fallback fare. So your fare will be updated. In fact, we just changed, if that ever happens to you, you will notice in your receipt, we'll tell you, Sergio, your original fare was $10, but you paid $13 because of certain changes on the trip.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, I have run into that issue once already with upfront fares, and it was not adjusted. But, because I don't know what the adjustment is for, right?
Sure,
meaning...
Yeah.
Outside the tip, obviously, but meaning, like, how far is the Uber algorithm set up to start adjusting? Is it like 500 feet, or is it a mile, or because I read I read everything, so it was kind of vague that I didn't know. Like, okay, if I drop somebody off earlier, they're going to deduct, right? So those are important questions drivers are asking. But today we're here for safety. So what else is next on your list? This is a long list today.
Well, we get a lot of questions from drivers. What should I do if I have someone coming into my car and they have a service animal? Yeah. Or someone's coming into my car with a baby and they don't have a car seat? What if someone is intoxicated? What if a rider is showing too much interest in me? How should I handle those situations? What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? Because I also don't want to make my passenger angry. So we have been getting a lot of tips from drivers themselves on how, what's the best way that they deal with it. So we publish tips. So if you go in the Learning Center, in the driver app, you will see tips in each of these situations. We have 5 situations now. We're going to continue to add to them just so that it's right at their fingertips. These are very frequently asked questions, and we just want to be able to share that information with them and share the best guidelines with them.
Yeah,
so you'll start seeing that in the Learning Center.
I think that's another wonderful tip, just for the fact that, look, we're out there doing hundreds of thousands of rides on an individual basis, right? And, people show up with that. I mean, it has happened to me plenty, underage minor, or, a mother showing up, holding a baby. I'm like, well, I can't let you in the car. And then they get all upset. I go, but, these are the terms of service and we have to abide by them. And it's quite dangerous, actually. So, yeah, those, anything you can, de-escalation obviously is key as a driver in any situation, because that has been my number one thing. That's why I'm 496. I try to de-escalate. But then, in certain cases, maybe you cannot. But obviously, yeah, safety is number one. And is there anything else that you guys have?
There was one other thing related to road safety. So we talked about left turns, but then also there are these two-way stop signs.
Yep.
Where there may be a stop sign for you, but there may not be a stop sign for the cross traffic. You may not know until it's too late. So what we're doing now on the map, in the app, you will see a very clear indicator, which will tell you that the intersection that is coming up is only a two-way stop sign. And we have already seen drivers react very positively to that. We're seeing that they're slowing down more as they're approaching those intersections, and they are being more cautious at those intersections.
Yeah, I think that's great. I honestly do, because in the dark, in LA streets, smaller streets, you don't know if you have to pay attention, obviously, but in certain areas, they're not marked that clearly. So I think that's another wonderful idea. So on this right turn issue, drivers can still use Google Maps if they choose to, right? They don't, I love your navigation. I'm not going to lie about it, but especially on deliveries now, you're showing everything clearly, but they have a choice to use Google Maps or your navigation, right?
They can switch between different applications. That said, we continue to improve our navigation system as well based on feedback from drivers.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on. I really truly appreciate it, and I'm actually hoping that this opens the door for you to come on to one of our live streams one day. We do it every two. We've grown like a wildfire, really. I'm acting like Uber support for you guys, because I get like hundreds of emails. What do I do, Sergio? I go, I don't know, call Uber support. But long story short, I would love for you to come on and have an extended conversation.
I would be delighted to. Look, it's feedback from drivers that really is the motivation for us to work on this. A lot of us are driving, Dara is driving, I'm driving, many of us are driving, but we are not the experts. The experts are the people who are on the road and doing thousands of trips. So we are spending a lot of time listening to drivers. So we are very proud of all the features we are launching, but we will continue to learn from their feedback and we'll continue to improve them.
Thank you. We appreciate both of you coming on. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Andrew. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.